Welcome back, guys. Today we got Jeremy Batt on the show. Jeremy, I actually met through an old coaching job down at CrossFit Steel Creek, and he started the business we're in right now, Project Lean Nation Charlotte. I believe there's locations around the country.
Yeah.
Got to know Jeremy a little bit through coaching. When I first opened the coffee shop, he was giving me some shit because I only had 12-ounce cups as the biggest size, so we brought the 16-ounce cups out
I thought
today.
these were bigger.
Yeah. We're here in Project Lean Nation. You guys have been open, rock and rolling for how long now?
We've been open, the retail spot's been open for about 3 months, 2-3 months.
Cool.
And then we did delivery for about 8 months before that.
Yeah. So Project Lean Nation, I'll post a link in the comments or something, but it's a meal prep service for people that want to live healthy lifestyles. You could probably tell more about it than I can, but just a really simple 2 or 3 sentences about what you're doing here.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, it's I don't want to plug it, but it's super simple. We just make eating healthy easy, convenient. Nutrition is like fuel for your body. So we just try to take the factor of spending all the time prepping your food and what you're going to eat, thinking about it, going and getting it, prepping, all that good stuff. We just take that out of the equation, just make life easier for people.
I like it. It's all about making life better for people.
That's right.
And that is actually why I wanted to have Jeremy on, because a while back, I didn't really know what I was doing. I had a lot of self-doubt. And I'm going to pull it up right now because I took a screenshot of it. This Facebook post that Jeremy made, April 21st, 2017. He goes through this list of stuff kind of through his life. And he says, when I was 12, his parents got divorced. 20, you actually got charged with a felony and you were in a jail cell for a little bit. 21, sued in civil court. 29, you left a 6-figure job to go into business. 6 months later, you were in $30,000 of debt. Over the next 6 years, and I don't know how long ago this was. I don't even know how old you are. Over the next 6 years, you would go on to own or buy or operate 5 different successful businesses. Moved down here when you were 31. I gotta scroll to the next thing because this is a long list, but basically it was just a journey of how you went through some tough times, and now you're in a place where you're successful. You just had a child, raising a family now, and that just really reinforced to me any struggles that I go through, other people have gone through it also, and so I kind of wanted to have you on to share the journey that you've been through and what's what is driving you today.
Cool. Well, I think first of all, I love that you bring that back. That's cool, and I love using Facebook and social media as a, just kind of platform to tell a story. I'm not a big fan of selling on it, but I think there's just so many eyes watching, and being transparent and vulnerable is just comes from the heart,
right.
So,
that's the other thing I'll add is that Jeremy's one of the best Facebook followers I have. A lot of times Facebook is just crowded with a lot of bullshit, and Jeremy's always posting whatever book he's reading that's inspiring him right now, and quotes from different leaders around the world, and it's just again, whenever you're feeling a little bit down, I don't know if it's Facebook algorithms or just the power of the universe, Jeremy hits me with a quote and I'm just all right, time to go.
And that's so good to hear, man, because every time I post it, there's always hesitancy before I post it. But then I always hear this little voice on my shoulder saying, what if one person sees it, And that's what's special about it. But, it's funny you talked about, kind of the success we've gained. And I don't think we're successful yet. I don't really see success as a destination. I just see I see the journey, and I think, overall, I think God gives us these skills and these gifts and this vision and this belief system of being able to just listen to yourself, right? And I think what I've learned is I've always followed my gut, and I've I've gotten into trouble and I've had my struggles, but I just keep putting one foot forward, and I look back and it's been, this journey of entrepreneurship, and I assume this is a majority of your audience, entrepreneurs.
I would think so.
Cool.
Right now.
Yeah. I would say that the cool part about life is the fact that you're going to go through some of that mess.
Yeah.
You know, like as long as you're going for it. If you're not going for it, you know, things can be easy, things can be comfortable. You can sit on the couch and you don't get hurt, you don't get your emotions hurt. But when you start going for it, life is amazing. You can start really learning, and you can jump in, and you can start trying to figure out what you want to do in this life. But I feel like this life is set up for us to go for it.
Yeah.
You know.
You talked about your faith. Have you been religious your whole life?
No, actually, funny story. I've always been against religion. I was, you know, I remember sitting down and having lunch with a friend of mine, Ron, and this guy I always respected you know, he was a guy that walked into the room and everybody wanted to be like Ron. Like, he was the most positive, energetic person in the whole room. And he, one day I sat down to lunch with him, and he took a second and prayed over his food. He just said, "Excuse me for a second, Jeremy." Yeah. And he prayed over his food, and then I said, "Hey, Ron, what's the deal with, you know, you being religious and things like that?" And he goes, Jeremy, he's like, "I'm not really religious." He's like, I have faith that there's something bigger than us. And I said, "Why?" And he goes, 30 years ago, so he's in his 60s, but 30 years ago, he lost his wife, and two of his kids, all in 3 separate incidents in a month. And he said he got on his knees and gave his life to Christ. And he said, if without that strength that he got from that, he wouldn't be here. He would have just given up, you know, himself. And so that got me thinking, you know, and then I started doing the research, and I decided to go to church one day, probably 7-8 years ago. And it was so different than anything I've ever expected. You know, I thought it was, you know, they're going to hit me over the head, and the church was going to burn down. And I found the most positive, encouraging people that I've ever met. And ever since then, it's just been a journey, and it continues to be a journey. Did
you start going to church when you moved here, or was that back in Buffalo?
Back in Buffalo, back in New York.
Yeah, because I've been to church a couple times here. I grew up in a Catholic family, so I went to Jesuit Catholic school for 12 years, and that was kind of forced onto me. I didn't have a choice in the matter. I don't consider myself religious now, but like, I've been to church down here a few times at 2 different locations, and it's a very different experience. These aren't Catholic churches that I've been to here, but it's you know, like, growing up, going to church meant all you needed to know was, you know, when to stand up, when to sit down, when to, you know, do the sign of the cross, when to say amen, and that was it. Here it's like people are, you know, there's like 2 guitarists and a drum set on band, and people are rocking and rolling and playing music, and it's a completely different experience. I find that interesting though, because like, I feel like there are times when people attribute their success or their abilities to God, and other times where people attribute success and abilities to their own hard work and their own, you know, the choices they make. Where do you fall on that?
God, for sure.
For sure.
Without the gifts and the ability, first of all, we're here because of God, you know, and everybody's got their own belief systems, and I respect all of them because nobody ever beat me over the head early on, and I always respected that. But I am 100% sure is there's something bigger than us, you know. And you know, when you start looking at something bigger than you, then it takes you away from your own pride and ego. And I think for me, I'm a witness of successful people, you know, that I see success in. And success might not always be making $5 million a year, or, you know, owning half of South End, or whatever it is. But when I see success, I see people that, you know, great father, great husband, great friend, in terms of giving back, like, you know, has a focus, like he'll develop his businesses and they'll build their businesses in an effort to impact others in a good way, in a positive way, and then give back. And I'll tell you right now, Freddie, I've never met. So the more I've witnessed people like this that have had that kind of success, full circle, they've always had one thing in common, and it was faith.
Interesting.
You know. Now I've met other people that have maybe made a lot of money, but they're miserable. They're horrible husbands. They're horrible fathers, and they attribute a lot of their success to their hard work and discipline, or their hard work and going after it to try to conquer the mountain, and they get to the top of that mountain and they're unfulfilled, and they look over and they're on the wrong mountain. So that's my personal experience, just from a witness and somebody who's taken time to go out and meet I have a lot of mentors, and the one thing I think that a lot of them have in common that I want to be like is they're doing this for something bigger than themselves.
That's cool. That's cool. That's interesting. I mean, you talk about how you have respect for other faiths. I think that's something that people can learn from too, especially this day and age. Yeah. There's a lot of otherism going on in the world.
Right.
Where it's like if you're not with us, you're against us. But I mean, there's value to be found in religious scripture from all cultures.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that I went to church here a couple times. I was going through a rough patch in a relationship and in school, and I just needed to hear a good message, and it wasn't the fact that I was religious, but they were. I remember the lecture that the pastor gave he was reading directly from the book of Ephesians and just going through it, line by line and putting it in historical context and just like explaining what it all meant. But yeah, it's. I think there's always a good message to be found and stuff.
And I think for some people it's the thought of it is a little over daunting. Yeah. And I think the most important thing is just like anything else, just take a step, right? Just take a step in the right direction, and just listen. Like I love spending time by myself and just quiet time and just listen to what my mind is saying, listen to what my heart's saying, and man, I'm telling you, that is where I get all my ideas. That's where I get my wisdom from. Is it's on the inside.
Yeah. So let's rewind a little bit though.
Cool.
High school kid, leading up to when you were 20 years old, sitting in a jail cell. What happened there? What led to that?
I love it. Yeah, this takes me back. So I've always been somebody who's competitive. Mm-hmm. So in high school, I was a big-time football player, all-state wrestler, and then when I left high school, I got a scholarship, academic scholarship to play football. And it wasn't for academic
scholarship.
Yeah, you know me. It wasn't because I was smart, and it wasn't because I had good grades. But I was decent on the football field. So I went and I played football. And when I went from being. This is a perfect example of like where you need to be. Like you need to be confident wherever you're at.
Right.
And so I went from being a big man on campus in high school football to college, where everybody was a big man on campus. So now you're around everybody else. And then this is a perfect example of why you don't have to do things to try to prove yourself to other people, because I learned from my mistake. So when I went to college, it was an environment of where I didn't know everybody, I didn't know anybody. I needed to prove myself, or at least I cared so much about what other people thought in my head that I needed to prove myself. So long story short, I became the knucklehead who would go out to the bar and get in fights and do real bad things because I felt like I needed to belong. And I felt like I had to do stuff to get other people to like me. So long story short, I made a real big mistake, and I ended up paying for it. It was a felony assault, and it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because at that point, it also made me realize, because I also looked around when I'm sitting in a jail cell, and I looked around and see who's there, and guess who wasn't there? The people that I was trying to impress. Guess who was there? The people that didn't care who I was, like didn't care that I was trying to impress other people. The people that were there around me were people that loved me for who I was. So that was a turning point. 20 years old, I had to deal with it for the next 5 or 6 years. One choice in 10 seconds, but it wasn't that, because it was before that. It was leading up to that. I was getting in fights every weekend, but I just got caught one time for something I had done from all these things that have led up to that, So it was a great learning experience, because it allowed me to realize, like, Jeremy, quit chasing the world. Like, if you keep chasing the world and trying to make everybody like you, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's I can't say that I've had an experience like that, but I've had moments where like I look around and definitely realize like, I'm in where I am because of the choices I made, and like I need to start making different choices to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how you like at really low moments like that, it also like gives you like clarity and shows you, kind of a clearer path of what you need to do.
Right.
Which is, it's like a paradox because you're really, really sad and like depressed and angry and like you have all this misplaced emotion, and then at the same time you're like inspired.
I heard a great quote that said, "Rock bottom is a great place to build a rock solid foundation."
Yeah.
So strong.
You're full of quotes, man. Where do you get this stuff?
Yeah.
What sources are you reading? Where do you go when you need inspiration?
So I start every morning with kind of a routine. I get up early, and I have to get my mind right because like my mind isn't right. Like I constantly, if I wake up without focusing on what's in between my ears, then the world is not going to be a better place because 97% of my thoughts are negative, are thoughts of of comfort, of security, of safety. They're not thoughts of vision and impact and beliefs. So I spend an hour and a half every morning when I wake up before the wife gets up, to get myself right. Because if I don't get myself right, I'm not gonna leave this planet a better place than I came onto it. So I read every day at least 40 to 45 minutes. Different books from start with the Bible, and then different books from success books. Just got done with that Bergeron book.
Yeah.
Probably read maybe 2 books a month, and then from there I listen on my way in every day. I listen to a podcast. Usually it's Brian Buffini. It's a 20-minute, so it's a 45-minute podcast. So I listen to it on the way to work, and then on the way home. So
it usually gets you through the
thing.
Yeah.
So I would say a lot of my quotes are coming from 2 to 3 hours a day of just like personal development, wisdom, things like that as I go throughout the day. Like, which is crazy. Like my mid-20s, I used to have the radio on, and like now it's I got stuff on that's feeding me with good fuel. Just like we, sell good fuel for people because we expect them they know that nutrition is what's going to help them feel better, look better, perform better. We need to be fueling our mind with good fuel that's going to help us think better.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of it's funny you mentioned that because like part of the inspiration for this project, this podcast that we're doing, was from a podcast. I must have watched it like a year and a half ago or something. It was with Tai Lopez, and he's full of quotes from ancient philosophy to modern day entrepreneurs, everybody in between. And it's something that he said is a 10-minute conversation with Socrates or somebody is more valuable than an hour with your drinking buddies.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking. It's like, how can I connect with more people that bring value just from having a conversation with them and then sharing that? So that's kind of the genesis, or one of the sources of motivation for this thing that we're doing now.
That's so good. One of my favorite things is you are the 5 people you hang out with the most, right?
Yeah.
And it's not only money. Like everybody uses that as a money thing. You want your net worth to be, your net worth will always be the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. It's also more than that. Your health. You are the 5 people that you hang out with the most in health. Your happiness.
Yeah, totally.
I guarantee you are the average of the 5 people you hang out the most. Like there's so much power in that.
Yeah. See, now we're just going to go back and forth with quotes. Dan Pena kind of expanded on that, and he said, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future."
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's so true.
So, but yeah, it's good stuff. Back to your life though. Let's go back to this list from this Facebook post. You got you left a 6-figure job. What were you doing?
Yeah. So I was in corporate sales, company called Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, moved up the ladder super quick. Freaking great company. You learn so much from them. They work your butt off. which is good, which is amazing. And then, but I got to that spot. I was 29 years old. I was probably 260 pounds. I was.
This is after the bodybuilding days?
No, this is before.
Before, okay.
Mm-hmm, yep. But after the college football days. So it really went downhill after that. So I work up the corporate ladder and just grinding, just putting my time and energy in. And, I always had this target of 6 figures. And by the time I was, 26, 27, I was making 6 figures. And it wasn't everything I was like, oh, that's where happiness lies, is at 6 figures, making $100,000 a year. And I got there, and that's not where happiness lies. Yeah. Don't let people kid you. So after a couple years of doing that and just in the corporate kind of rat race, I remember looking in the mirror. I was 29. I looked like I was 55. I was my hair, like I was still trying to hang on to it. My hair was like coming up to here. Yeah. And, I was 40 pounds overweight, and I remember just being like, I can't do this for the next 40 years of my life. I was grateful for it, so I decided to make the jump, man, and go and create my own day. Work for myself.
So what was that first move when had you done entrepreneurship stuff before, or was this just like you woke up one day and you're just like, I got to get out of this, I got to shift gears?
Yeah. If I look back to the early days, I used to when I was 10, I used to shovel people's driveways for $5, and then I got so busy I hired a couple other people and I paid them $3 and I got $2, and then I got when I was 13 I got a route, like a paper route. You're too young to remember that.
How old do you think I am?
I don't know. How old are you?
26.
Are you?
I'm about to be 27.
All right, so you're getting close.
I know about paper routes. There was a milkman in my neighborhood when I was growing up. So we didn't get it, but my neighbors would get like a crate of milk on their front porch like once a week.
Yeah, that's the old school ways, man. So I remember early on, I've had this entrepreneur bone in me for so long. Yeah. And I think that's why I was so successful in corporate America, because I owned it like it was my own. Right. And I was the first one there, last one to leave, and I took it like it was my own business, and that helped me skyrocket that. So although I hadn't really kind of put it in a box that I was doing entrepreneurship, I did. I had some entrepreneur mindsets. So then I was so desperate to leave corporate America because I was just burned out. I went and bought a gym, my first gym, and it was 12,000 square foot, huge overhead. It was a regular gym, just a brick and mortar, kind of meathead gym, where we were charging $20 a month. And you can imagine, like, if you do the math, how many members it takes to make any sort of income running that business. Yeah. So I was so desperate to leave that I made a brash decision and opened this gym or bought this gym that was already open, thinking I can make the difference and do all that, and it was a good learning experience. It wasn't very successful. 6 months in, really, I was broke. I was personal training 60 hours a week just to stay my head above water, and just a system. A lot of personal training. A lot of personal training. Just a system and the concepts of the overall that location weren't the greatest, so it just allowed me to learn.
Yeah. Well, the fitness industry in general is interesting because it's I don't know the numbers now, but it used to be like a $60 billion a year industry in the U.S. and people in the U.S. keep getting less and less healthy, and it just there's like that weird paradox where this industry there's lots of money to be made, there's lots of turnover. Like there's a gym down the road that has been the same gym, but it's been 3 or 4 different names in the last few years because whoever is running it doesn't make any money and they sell it to somebody else. I think it's an LA Fitness now, but it used to be Urban Active, and before that it was something else. It's interesting. But fitness has been a part of your life for a while. You opened a gym. You still own a couple of CrossFit gyms?
No longer majority owners in any of them, just minority owners. So that's kind of my thing. That's the entrepreneur thing. Is I get them started, I get them off the ground and rolling, and then I usually sell off a majority stake.
And those gyms are down in Florida, correct?
Charleston, South Carolina. Yep.
Apologies. How'd you get into CrossFit?
So it was funny. So up in New York, we had that gym. Wasn't making any money. A buddy of mine came to me. His name was Dan. He goes, "Hey man, can I rent out like 400 square foot in that back corner? And I want to do this CrossFit thing." And I'm like, good luck, man. This is like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I'm like, I think you missed the boat, dude. And he goes, I know, I just want to try it. I just want to, if I can rent that little 400 square foot place for $300 a month, like you're not using it, that'd be cool. Like next month, 30 people are in there. A month after that, it's 60. And then he grew that thing to over like 125 to 130 clients, in a small little spot, you know? So that kind of made me realize that the concept was a much better concept than the regular brick and mortar gym. Because I love the ideas of a Lifetime Fitness and LA Fitness. I just don't have those deep pockets, to be able to put the nicest machines up there and all that stuff. And that's what it is. Like the machines are. I used to sell treadmills and stuff. 8-10 grand,
Jeez. Yeah. And then you got to redo them every year, and then you got to buy new stuff every other year.
I was a guy that was on Craigslist buying them for like $300. And then work for like 20 days or whatever, and then I try to fix it myself, and then I had a row of 8 treadmills, and they're all different. That was me, dude. So just a great idea, great like way to go for it, but it was flawed from the beginning. So what I loved about CrossFit was the fact that like low overhead, you can bring more value because it's more of a personal relationship. When people spend more money, they're more vested. And then, you could charge more and you have way lower expenses. So I love the idea of it, and I love the concept of it, and I love the free enterprise of it. Now, if I thought, if there was one thing I'd want more of, would be like Project Lean Nation is a franchise. So when I started this, guess what? Everything was built in. The on-ramp was built in. The marketing was built in. The national advertising was built in. The website was built in. The lead process was built in. The manufacturing was built in. The distribution was built in.
You needed the space and the network.
And flip the switch, go. So the one hard part about, and this is why I love what Stu does, is the one hard part I see with CrossFit, because I got so many friends that still are CrossFit owners, is it's getting better, but there weren't a lot of resources to help people run successful CrossFit gyms.
Right.
It was like, here, pay your $3,000 for your affiliation, and then 3, 2, 1, go. Good luck. Rather than like, I think if people have done it already, learn from them. And just duplicate what they've done, right? And that was never. I never saw that in CrossFit.
Yeah. That's interesting. So what? You opened a gym. You got into bodybuilding, right? You competed for a little bit?
Yeah, just doing physique shows.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good, so that's why I don't do it anymore.
I think there's something to be said for that though, because like when you're dieting down, or you train for 2 years or something for that 5 minutes you're on stage. I think there's something to be said for delayed gratification.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Focusing on something in the distance, having long-term goals. Talk to me a little bit about what role fitness has played in your life, whether it's bodybuilding, CrossFit, from a business standpoint.
Well, sports, big time sports. So like, so what's cool about my story in college? That was my freshman year. Well, I went on to be one of the only 2-time captains in the history of that school. And it wasn't because of my performance on the field. I really wasn't that good, but it was my performance in the locker room and on the practice field. So I took a guy who was an average athlete, and I worked my butt off, and I did all the things when nobody's watching, to then when you show up on the field, you're above average. So same thing in business. I love this because in business, in sports, perfect correlation is everybody rewards you and congratulates you for when you open that next location or the third. Like we'll open 4 or 5 of these in Charlotte, but it's not that sexy.
No.
What goes on behind the scenes when you leave and I make 20 phone calls to new leads? Like, that's the work that needs to be done, you know? And is it the fun work? That's not the fun work. The fun work is opening up these things, doing the ribbon cutting, you know, posting on Instagram that opening our next location. Everybody's like, yeah. No, that's all fun. But the real work is the stuff that's done when nobody's there at the coffee shop, and you're getting everything ready first thing in the morning. When you're out marketing, when nobody's watching, right? Like, what you do when nobody is watching is a direct reflection of what's going to happen when people are watching.
Yeah. So anyway, I was saying I was kind of the anomaly, is that on the golf team, you know, guys didn't really like to work out because then they would get sore, and then like they felt like their golf swing was messed up. But like for a short time, I was the school didn't have a gym, so I was going to the YMCA, and I'd be there at 5 a.m. And then I would come back to school, and I'd go to the cafeteria, and like people would see that I was sweaty and I just worked out, and they're like, "You play golf? Do you really have to work out? Like, it's golf." I was like, "Well, yeah. Like, I'm an athlete. I think I should be in shape." But it was just something that I enjoyed, and something that like was one of those things where like it's kind of rare in life where you can see like direct correlation for what you're doing. But like if you get on the bench press, let's say, and you can't do a certain weight, well, then you have to work at doing that for a long time, and then you get better. Yeah. And they're like, golf was one of those things where you can work and work and work and not see any improvement. And like, you know, same thing with other things in life, but like gym, I felt like there was like a direct correlation between the work you put in and then the results you get from it. And like the recipe wasn't a mystery. It was just like, are you willing to do it? Yeah. So I really liked that aspect of fitness. And I think that's had a big impact on how I view the world today, just because I got into working out when I was 18 years old. Let's see. I gotta go back to the list, because this was kind of the inspiration for this whole thing. Being a dad, how's that going?
Buddy.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. It's just, it's by far, other than when I gave my life to Christ, it's the biggest highlight. Obviously, getting married. It's number 3. So having a baby's number 3. It's just, you know, it's one of those things that like today we have a long day today. Today's our first day of pickups. We'll have, I don't know, maybe like 50, 75 people fly through here, like, and it's just a long day, you know, and I'll go home at 7 o'clock tonight, and I'll walk in the room, and she's just like all smiles, all laughs, like she knows you're there, and like it just makes everything, like, ties it all together. So like it's nuts, because I thought I was a motivated mofo before. I've never been this focused and motivated. You know, because it's perfect example. Like, we only get so far when we do something for ourselves. We only get so far. If you learn to do things for other people, and how you can serve other people, and how you can make impact. Look at Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs didn't care about himself. He wanted to change the world, right? Mark Zuckerberg wanted to change the world. People, if you get out of your own way and you focus on your purpose and your why, and bringing value to others and impact, you can do whatever you want to do in this world. So the baby is just a perfect example of like of something that needs me, and something I have to protect and be responsible for. And it's been an amazing experience so far. We're in a cool season right now. She's 5 months old. So she's got her routines and everything, and she got her personality coming out. So, it's special. It's
was it? I mean, obviously, there's adjustments you have to make. Your lifestyle changes a little bit, but was that sometimes difficult? Did you feel yourself start to kind of push against it, or was it like, you know, I've got a kid now, and this is what I'm doing?
Great question.
I mean, back to where we started. You said you wake up an hour and a half before your wife and daughter. Was that something that you had to implement just because you needed that time for yourself, and be able to manage everything else at the same?
Cool. Ever since I did all that personal training, I used to wake up at 4 a.m. Ever since I did that, I've been an early riser. So I've always woken up kind of early. The difference now with the baby is just being more focused. I work probably less hours, but I'm more focused during those hours. I'm not scrolling on Facebook. I'm dialed in. You know, like I'm time blocked throughout the day. Like everything is productive, because it has to be. Because if it's not, then guess what? That little girl grows up without knowing that much about her dad. You know, that little girl's mom, my wife, grows up or continues her life without the support and guidance that she needs. So it's just different. You know, I probably do more with less now, and then wherever I'm at, I'm there. Like when I get home at night, 7 o'clock at night, I won't touch my phone until tomorrow morning, first thing, you know, because I'm all in,
right.
you know. So just making sure I'm staying focused and everything like that. But it's so cool. Like it's so there's this trend of like how things always are. So like I love this because when you decided to open up South End Grind. Like you're like, this is gonna be amazing. It's gonna be the best thing I ever did. I can't wait. It's like your baby, right?
Yeah.
So you have this dream of like, oh my God, this can be awesome. And then you get in there for a little while, and I'm just assuming, just because I've gone through this like 7 or 8 times in different things, you hit this spot where you almost drop off a little bit, and you're like, whoa, this is kind of hard. You know, and this is harder than I thought it would be. So it's perfect with like a marriage, getting back into a fitness routine, having a baby. You're like, I'm having a baby, and then you're like, shoot, I'm having a baby. Like now what? You know, so that's where you kind of dip down, and this is you go from a dream phase, and then the next part is a development phase. So I've been over there. You guys are way busier now than you were 3 months ago, and it's because you've learned that you needed to develop your skills and your abilities and your belief systems. And then, so you dip down, and then this is a perfect example of like having a baby. You dip down, and you're like, wow, I'm really not good at this. And then, but then you have to develop your skills, and you start working back up. And the end game, she's 5 months old, so we're not close to the end game. But right. But the end game is
like 30 years old.
30 years old, but you got to take things in seasons, right? But you think about like where we're at right now is way better than where I even thought it was going to be when I saw the dream originally. And like that's a cool part about getting South End Grind off the ground is you might be here and you might be working your way up. Down here, dude, is way better than what you even expected because you've gone through this journey.
Now, not to put like a negative twist on things, but your parents got divorced, and you were old enough at the time to understand kind of what was going on.
Yeah.
My parents got divorced when I was 16 months old, but then I saw my dad get another divorce when I was 16, and that's kind of it's affected me. I don't know what the result of it is, but it's affected how I view relationships and how I view the world.
What you feel normal, what you think is normal in your mind, like that's what you believe is kind of normal.
I mean, I always say I'm glad that my parents got divorced before I was old enough to know anything.
Yeah.
Like I was 16 months old, I was barely walking, and so yes, that was my normal growing up. But how do you think being a product of that has shaped you?
That's a great question. Is because I believe my previous experience of when my dad left, and I love my dad. He gave us so much love, but when he left, something inside of me clicked that said like, guys leave, dads leave, and that affected me for a long time. Like all through my 20s, I couldn't commit. And it was a blessing that I found Lauren when I was 33, but there was a big issue there, and I had to really take some time and understand that a lot of the reasons I was walking away from things was because of my previous experience and the hurt that I felt there, and I didn't want other people to feel that hurt. So I had to just take some quiet time, and get on the inside of what my belief systems were and just change those belief systems. So every day I read 15 to 20 different belief systems of I'm going to be a great father. I'm a great leader. I lead with strength and vision. I do and I read these things every day, and bro, they help because
Dude. What do I call them? Aspiration? Same
Affirmations.
Thing. Affirmations, that's right. But I'm a big believer in those.
Yeah.
I had to, a personal story, but I had to trick myself into believing that I could win golf tournaments before I ever actually won a golf tournament.
Right.
And it was just from that, I am a champion. And I would say that, I would write it in a little notebook every day.
Did you read the book How Champions Think?
No, I read,
Because it's about golf.
With Winning in Mind by Lanny Basham. Okay. Great book.
Yeah.
If you haven't done that for sports or otherwise, but it was. Yeah. But like you have to believe these things before they actually happen, because it's like a reflection of your beliefs. Like the world you're living in, like the world you create, I think is a direct reflection of like the thoughts and choices you make. And so you have to believe certain things if you want them to become a reality. That's something that I believe.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. That's cool though.
Yeah.
You well, I forget where we were at before that. I get distracted sometimes. But how you went through those phases with the other businesses you started, I'm guessing?
Yeah, all of them. So my main business is a business called Advocare Network Marketing. So that's my plan A. So all this other stuff is side businesses. I just love entrepreneurship, and we'll open up a bunch of these. But my plan A will always be Advocare, because it would take a lot to overcome that. We have thousands of people on my Advocare team.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing, dude. I almost, like 3-4 months in, I almost gave up on it. I got involved. I went to the meeting. I saw 6-figure earners up there. I saw 7-figure earners, and I was like, "Ah, man, that sounds great. I could emulate that. And I would love to have that lifestyle." And then you get in the trenches, and you realize, it's harder than it looks.
Right.
And then you gotta develop your skills. You gotta get better, and you gotta keep moving forward. So,
how long ago did you get involved with Advocare?
7 years.
7 years.
That's what actually got me out of the basement of my gym.
Nice.
Yeah. That's the first thing that it started. 6 months in owning my own gym, I moved out of my house and moved into my basement of my gym because I was broke. I was going to lose my house if I didn't earn income from my house. So I moved out of my house to rent my house.
Yeah.
And I moved into the basement of my gym.
That's
yeah. And that's also where I had been introduced to Advocare before, but I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And that's when I was introduced again by somebody I really respected, and that's when I was ready.
Yeah. I remember buying some of the Spark energy drink mixes from a buddy of mine that I worked with when I was in high school, and I didn't really know anything about anything at the time, but that was my introduction. That type of business has always been interesting to me, because it's a unique way of building a customer base. But you've been you like get invited to go to the national meetings with Advocare every year, correct?
Yeah.
And you're now one of those people that's on stage that you saw 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. What's getting down to it? I ask people that come on the same list of questions. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Do more for others than you do for yourself. Give. Life's all about giving, and I swear to God, like the more you give, the more you get. And it's funny if you have the perspective of like what you can get, you don't end up going anywhere. So just switching your perspective to like, what can I get out of this to what can I give here?
Is that something is that some advice that you received from somebody specific, or is that something that's come from this, your 90-minute reflection sessions every day?
Yeah. Well, I've also been a witness of success. I've also seen people who are super successful, and they all do the same thing. Like if you ever notice, like they just give more than other people. Gary Vaynerchuk, if you ever watch, that guy has given, I think, like 2,000 or 3,000 free videos.
Yeah.
Like all he does is give, and guess what? He's not hurting it. Because people are like, wow, okay, he's giving me this. I've gotten this, and this, and they want to take another step or whatever, and he gets enough.
Yeah.
But if he's focused on helping enough other people get what they want, he can get whatever they want. Yeah. And it's hard because I wake up with an idea, with a mindset of what can I get today?
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes like entitlement feels that you've worked hard, you feel like you deserve to get something. And when you start having that mindset, it's time to like step back and switch your perspective.
Cool. What next one? If you had a phone call with an 18-year-old Jeremy Batt, what do you tell that kid?
Oh man, I just posted this on Facebook this morning.
I missed it. No.
Yeah, pull it up.
Oh man, I'm on airplane mode right now because I didn't want to get disturbed.
I said 25-year-old, but
That works too. Now I got to pull it up.
What a small world that you asked that question. I really was just thinking about it as I posted.
Seriously one of the few questions that everybody gets asked. Of course, now I'm going slow. That is funny. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, man. I mean, like I said, I'm not super religious, but I kind of joke about like the power of the universe.
Yeah.
It just kind of puts things in front of you that you need to say, or that you need to see. Since no one ever asked for it, here's my advice to a 25-year-old. Always put your shopping cart back. No one's ever sustained success has left their shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot. That's good.
That's true. And you know I wrote it because this morning on my way to
you watched somebody.
I watched some guy and I went and moved it after I saw him he put his stuff in and he just drove off and I was like, I feel bad for that guy because I guarantee there's no level of success he'll ever reach.
Interesting.
Always put your shopping cart back.
That's funny.
People are watching.
Start putting 10% of all you earn into a separate account, which you can invest. Many people get rich but never wealthy. Wealth takes discipline over investing a long period of time. 3, don't invest in something you don't have a good amount of knowledge with. All investing is not equal. Pick something you enjoy learning about. Spend a few hours a week developing your knowledge. Yeah, man, this is a rather exhaustive list, and it ties right into the next question, which is, if there's an 18-year-old kid out there that calls you and says, "Hey, I want to be the next Jeremy," what do you say to that? Just keep going down the list here.
Yeah, well, number one, got to figure out their motivations. You know, what's motivating them? What do they want? What are they striving for? I love the perfect day vision of hey, where do you want to be not only 40 years from now, but where do you want to be 3 years from now, with your perfect vision, and then creating a game plan of, all right, if I need to get here 3 years, now I need to create a game plan, and there's a few steps. Step 1, make a freaking decision, commit. When I did these physique shows, guess what? I made a decision and I committed because you have to get up on stage in a bathing suit, So guess what? I needed to do something right there and commit. Go all in. I'm a big fan. Go all in. Step 2 is create that game plan, that process, commit to the process. Yeah. You're not going to conquer your whole vision in one day, but you can do a lot by creating momentum over 10 days. So I like to take a few steps and say, okay.
10 days. Talk about 10 years.
Yeah. Well, 10 years might be the vision, but you can create 10 days of momentum. Yeah. So for us, let's say we wanted to get this place to 300 clients, active clients that walk out with a box every single day. Well, that might be the game plan in the next 3 months. Well, guess what? I need to take action today to start moving that forward. So what do I need to do? I need to reach out to these 2 apartment complexes and set up an affiliate program. I need to go over to CrossFit South End and give away some free meals. I need to call these 20 leads that I have waiting for me that came across the computer system in the last 3 or 4 days. Right. I can do all that in the next 10 days. And that's gaining your momentum. When you feel like you're in momentum, you continue to take action. There's nothing worse than when you feel like you're discouraged and you're not getting any sort of success. That's when you don't take any action, right?
Right. It is interesting because I was reading this book a couple weeks ago. It was all about creative thinking, but it ties into this perfectly because the guys when I get hired on as a consultant for a marketing team or creative team, I tell them to spend the next 10 minutes, come up with 100 ideas. Yeah. They're like, well, we don't need 100, we need one good one. He's like, the chances that you're going to come up with something good in 100 ideas is really high.
Right.
But the chances that if you come up with 5 ideas that one of them is going to be excellent, it's not as high. Right. But if you just keep building on just doing things, you're going to get something good out of it. Yeah. And I think that comes from that momentum thing. If you make this a practice, you're going to build something that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Some of the greatest thinkers of all time, you know what they take it an hour to 90 minutes a day, and just they don't have their phone next to them. They just think. Yeah. And the last step to that advice would be, don't do it alone. Okay. Find other people that have had success in what you're trying to get a success with, reach out because they want to give. I promise you.
Mentors.
They want to give mentors.
Yeah.
So don't do it alone. Success leaves tracks.
That was a big thing from the recent show I did with John Espy. Is he's like he's been really intentional about finding mentors.
Yeah.
And then now that he's in a position where other people are under his leadership, he sets aside time each week for people to schedule time with him, and he can be a mentor.
And I bet you that's the biggest satisfaction he gets throughout the whole week. It's crazy. Yeah. I guarantee it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the last question is kind of a two-part question. What are your goals for business and personal? And then if you achieve those goals, what do you do the next day?
Perfect. Cool. So we have a vision of we've got everything we want. Like we have a beautiful house, we have beautiful cars, like we have plenty of money in the bank. Like we've got everything we want that we could live off of, right? So now it's thinking about other people. So our goal is we'll probably develop a few of these not because we need it to succeed, but if you sat around here all day, you'd see 50 to 75 people that come in that have lost 10, 15 pounds, that have more energy, that have lost body fat, that have changed their life with healthy eating habits. We've just made it a little easier. They made the choice. Right. So it's huge for them. So we're going to open up more of these because we can help more people. But one thing we're super excited about is 2020 is my wife and I and our baby, and we'll probably have another one by then. So we'll probably have 2, maybe 3, maybe 1 on the way. But we plan to live abroad. So we're going to pick 3 or 4 different locations. So she grew up in Australia. So Australia is one. We're thinking like Vancouver, British Columbia is another one. Maybe Hawaii, maybe a place in Mexico. And we're going to live there and really give our daughter the true culture, the experiences, just stuff that she could never get by reading a book, just being in it. So we're gonna do that for an entire year and then see how it goes. And then we plan on coming back to a nice big farmhouse and just having plenty of kids and just every day just doing more for other people than you do for yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of value in that. Both experiencing different cultures and then, giving back. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome, man.
That's all I got.
Yeah, my pleasure.